Hello there. I've been expecting you. Welcome to Monster of the Week, the show where we dig up old creatures from past editions of Dungeons & Dragons and convert them for use in 5th edition D&D. Today's episode is a very special one for two different reasons. For starters, we are talking about a creature from the pages of Eberron, which somehow did not make it into the brand new Eberron book that we just got. So for those of you who are actually running Eberron campaigns and looking for some more quori, then this is the episode for you. And for those of you who are not running Eberron campaigns, but you just want a really cool monster to throw at your players, this is going to be equally applicable to you as well. The second reason this is a very special episode is because it marks the passage of this community from YouTube into the realm of YouTube. And by that, of course, I mean we've got our first sponsorship! But for real, this episode is sponsored by Autumn's Fire, which is a brand new fantasy novel coming out today, which we're going to talk more about at the end of this video, so stick around for that. And if you are impatient and you're curious about it, of course, there is going to be a link in the description. Also, on a side note, I just want to throw this out there. If there are any powerful malevolent entities, I still have most of my soul left intact, and I am not opposed to making a contract with you, so hit me up. I'm looking at you, Audible. In any case, we are here to talk about this fine little creature known as the Du-Ulora, also colloquially known as a blackfury amongst the denizens of the world upon which it wreaks havoc, because it's a lot easier to say. These things are not only nightmarish to look at, they can also literally cause nightmares, as they of course come from the realm of dreams, which is the same place that the Hashalak Dream Stealers come from, and you might remember those from a video we did some time ago. But aside from being BFFs with the old Hashalaks, the Du-Ulora are really fascinating creatures in and of themselves. I mean, if you weren't sold on the imagery of the giant bulbous flesh mass with 3 eye tentacles and 6 mismatched wings, today we're going to go over just exactly what they can do in combat and some plot hooks and ideas for how you can use them in your game, which ultimately I'm hoping will reveal to you just why these creatures are so interesting. So sit back, relax, and get ready, because first off, we are going to talk about... So first things first, let's talk about movement. In order for this thing to get its body moving, it has to fly. It has no regular movement speed, but it does have a fly speed of 70 feet, which is absolutely bonkers when you consider the fact that the only thing keeping it in the air is these 6 little wings that definitely do not look like they are powerful enough to keep that up in the sky. This, of course, raises the question, does it actually need the wings to fly, or does it use some type of psionic energy? Likely it is the latter, and the wings are just there to mess with you in unforeseeable ways, but thus is the nature of hellish creatures from the world of dreams. So first and foremost, what this creature is most notorious for is its Fury Aura. This is a passive ability, as the name would suggest. Being an aura, it affects all creatures of its choice within 30 feet of it. And if you happen to be one of those unfortunate creatures, you need to make yourself a wisdom save at the start of your turn or go into a frenzy for 2d6 rounds. And while you're frenzied, you get advantage in attack rolls, which is awesome, but you also have to attack the nearest creature to you, which is less awesome. I mean, if the nearest creature to you happens to be this giant eyeball monster, then that's great for you. But if it happens to be your companion or one of the squishier spellcasters nearby, then you can kind of see where this is going. The Du-Ulora does not need to be strong because it is able to use the strength of others against them. But of course, that's not all it can do. Being a giant flying monster the size of a horse, it can lash out with those 3 massive tentacles, deal damage, and literally burn people with its seething rage, and then also grapple them. And if you're grappled by this thing and it hits you with another slam attack, it's basically just squeezing tighter, and it's going to cause even more damage than a regular attack would. Sounds like a bad time, because it 100% is. And of course, being a psionic being, it has access to a bunch of different spells, which range from chill touch all the way up to things like hallucinatory terrain to mess with things on a bit of a larger scale. And of course, some things like confusion or wall of force. And if it's got an ample opportunity to do so, it can use dream to cause nightmares for anyone else that's on the same plane of existence as it. This is one of those creatures that becomes more dangerous the more of you there are fighting against it, just because of that fury aura, which I find really fascinating, because a couple of these things in the midst of like a whole army could absolutely decimate a massive number of soldiers. Whereas when it's up against a smaller adventuring party, or maybe even one or two combatants, those characters can try to use that rage ability to their advantage if they're smart about how they approach it. Which of course brings us on to our next topic. Let's talk about some... So the most obvious way to use this thing is kind of what the lore suggests, which is as essentially a battlefield commander. These creatures are extremely smart and sort of provide the tactician role for the quori army. But even if you're not using the quori specifically because you're not running an Eberron game, you can still use them as a sort of tactician type monster for an aberrant group of creatures, or even something like mind flayers where they have that sort of psionic energy connection. You could use them as a type of mind flayer monster if you really wanted to. I mean, you can kind of re-flavor them however you like, and that's the joy of being a DM, as I always say. Basically, any situation where one of these things is either being used as a tactical unit or is actually controlling a large number of forces, it's going to be able to excel at what it does best, which is sowing chaos and making it much easier for its allies to get in and destroy its enemies. As kind of a single-use monster, a really interesting thing for your party to come across could be like maybe a village that was previously decimated by this creature, where everyone within the village is deceased and it looks like they all turned on each other, and it's kind of up to your players to figure out how and why. Maybe the ultimate end of that quest line is them discovering that one of these black furies passed through the area and either intentionally or maybe just accidentally through its own indifference caused this whole township to turn on each other. I feel like if it didn't even do it on purpose, that almost makes it scarier. Like just its presence was enough to drive these people mad and create this crazy bloodlust. But of course, depending on how you want to use it, that is absolutely up to you. I mean, they are intelligent thinking beings and they can communicate, so they could even have a dialogue with your party as it tries to explain, like, I didn't do that on purpose, I just was there and they didn't have the mental fortitude to resist my weird cosmic powers. What are you gonna do, am I right? But whether you're using this creature as a tactical mastermind commanding a group of soldiers or just as a kind of one-off monster of the week style encounter, I think they're really interesting, and that induced rage just seems like such a unique mechanic. There are very few creatures that have the capacity to do that or even something close to it, and for that I think it's worth including in your monstrous repertoire. Doubly so if you're actually running an Eberron campaign and using the quori in your game, because they're just a really cool addition to that subsect of creatures that for some reason was not reprinted in Rising from the Last War. So if you decide you want to use this creature, of course the stat block is in the description below in the form of a Google document, which will include absolutely everything that you need to run this monster successfully in combat. And if you are one of my lovely patrons on the Patreon page, you can find the kind of monster manual style version of the stat block that also includes a few extra lore tidbits and that kind of thing. And as I mentioned before, this video is sponsored by Autumn's Fire. Autumn's Fire is a fantasy slice-of-life novel with romantic elements that takes place in a magical world where there are over 50 races. The main characters, Autumn and Creole, experience a fantastical friendship in this unique story that will leave you hoping, yelling, wondering, and crying over the journey that takes place. To learn more or to buy the book, visit MacyCarson.com. So once again, thank you Macy for supporting me and supporting this channel and helping me make more videos about crazy eyeball monsters. You gotta give the people what they want. And for some reason, it's giant eyeball monsters. I don't know. I do just want to take a second too to genuinely thank all of you for your support and for showing up when we make these videos and for all the awesome conversations and stuff we have on the Discord. Especially right now with all this coronavirus stuff happening. You know, personally, I am in quarantine because my entire province has basically just shut down. So it's good to have people to talk nerdy stuff with, especially regarding D&D. And everyone's been super helpful with actually making monsters and suggestions, and I really just want to say a big old thank you to you guys for being awesome. In any case, wash your hands, stay inside, and I will see you in the next video. Until then,